in Dharavi, a commercial street. So the little districts of the city, so we can stick with Hanover, Germany, where they have Kreuzberg, where they've taken all of these technologies in terms of water and cogeneration and passive building and solar and recycling and transit, and we've taken all the things that we've been testing over the last 20 years, and we put it into a unit, a new unit of a city that has dramatic results, surely not enough, along with what Conrad said, but dramatic results at that scale. 15,000 people, 3,000 jobs are located there, schools, churches, shopping within this system. So unique kind of urbanism, eco-urbanism we can begin to see. And the question is, can we have more Kreuzbergs? And I think the answer is yes, we can do that. We can scale that up. We go to the mesoscale, where individual districts, little units, actually create a big system that interacts with the environment outside of it. So I think that's probably Bogota there on the right. But we can look again at Curitiba. This is what it looked like in 1973. And through the process that I talked about before, we can see that there's a system that has guided the development of that. And it's actually a network that goes metro-wide now. It involves 20 municipalities all feeding into these corridors that allow a city at the mesoscale, at the large scale, to function in a more ecological fashion. And there haven't been too many more Curitibas built, but Curitiba is a case in point in a place that was very resource-strapped under extreme conditions that actually we can do this, we can do more of this. Also, from the point of view of our food supply, we have Shenzhen that has a target of growing 60% of its meat and vegetable supply within the greater urban region. So we have places that are thinking about urban agriculture. In Havana, 90% of the vegetables are produced within Havana, that are consumed within Havana. So we can begin to be productive in ways more than generating our own energy. And we begin to experiment here in the United States in particular with the idea of high-rise agricultural centers within our cities. This one planned for Las Vegas was going to supply food for 72,000 people in Las Vegas and also turn a profit. That's on the books. It's not been built yet. There was a little crisis that happened since that was planned out. And finally, we go to the macro scale. We go to the scale of the biome, and ultimately, this will be the final test. Because to deal with the big regional system like this, and to stop extracting, we need to take stock of the amount of material, the amount of resources that we have already accumulated within this global system, and ask ourselves, do we need to extract anything more? Don't we already have enough to rebuild, to renew? And in some cases, we won't. But there's evidence that in some cases we actually have enough in the global city. And if we started to mine our cities and trade the stuff of our cities between each other again, we might be able to stop extracting from the Earth's other biomes. And let's just look at two examples. This is New Jersey, where and many cities are doing this now, where they recycle their concrete. In Hong Kong, the concrete is recycled and it's shipped to mainland China to build the new cities in mainland China. And this is now a significant part of the concrete supply chain in China, so they don't need to go extract gravel and shale from some hinterland any longer. Here's an interesting case. Let's mine our landfills. The big waste management companies had this in mind when in the 1970s and 80s they actually went to municipalities and said, we not only want to pick up your trash and take it to the landfill, we want to own the landfill because that's a future mine and we're going to mine it. But here's a municipality that's mining 50,000 tons of usable material in 1 year from its landfill, and it's finding that the material that they get from that is half the cost of virgin material. Mostly it's iron that they're getting out and some other metals. So can we begin to extract from ourselves and trade between ourselves? So here's the scenario I paint to ICLEI, and to try to maybe very consistently with what you're saying, Conrad, but to try to raise the bar a little bit in terms of the challenge that you painted and our ambition as a community of practitioners. Can we create a biome? Can this become a biome? Or do we have to go down that ecological footprint dead end that we talk about, where it's from 1 planet to 2 planets to 3 planets, and we don't really know how we get ourselves down? I argue that an ecological urbanism has to address this question, or we're keeping ourselves busy. We have to think at this scale now, And there may be some dimensions to the scale just to sort of sketch it out. First, we've got to get the spatial design and form down. Why? Because those basic economics of a city, proximity, density, scale, co-location, what allows association and community to organize. If we don't use the spatial arrangements and the forms in our cities to foster these kind of urbanisms and the economics required to have transit, to invest in all the infrastructure, cogeneration, district heating, we're not going to get there. So that's the first thing we need to get a handle on. And when we get there, that creates the economics for us to use the most advanced technologies available to us to create the systems of the Curitiba's and the Hanovers and the Kreuzbergs, et cetera. And when we have those technologies, then we can start to make our urban systems at the local and metro scale intelligent systems. We can then use chips to make them smart, to feed back information to us as households, to us as businesses, to us as commuters about what the best option is. And in fact, Cisco is very involved in this now. They are thinking about how to put chips in just about every process in a city so that it can become a self-regulating system. And if it becomes a self-regulating system, it can become self-organizing in a different way. We can intelligently begin to make individual choices that allow us to shape the growth pattern of that city in a different way. What does that mean? We can create a culture and we can create new patterns of consumerism that are informed by a constant flow of data about our ecological choice. In Toronto now, the utility, because they're maxing out in terms of summer power supply, they actually can turn off the air conditioner in our homes if they reach a peak supply moment in the middle of a summer day. So there's intelligence being built into the system now. And this creates a self-reinforcing loop that might lead us to a new global scenario of the biome. So this is where we've been. We've figured out how to build cities to support industrialization. In other words, to create a global machinery of extraction. And then we said this machinery is creating some problems for us, initially with our own health, so we put in sewer systems and sewage treatment. And then we think about nature a little bit, and we put in filters on our smokestacks. And so we go through a period of environmental engineering. It's not about changing extraction, it's about mitigating the impacts of extraction. And then along comes ICLEI and a bunch of other people who say, can we get more integrated? Can we find greater efficiencies and more potential by getting rid of the silos between the solid waste system and the water system and the energy system and optimize it a little bit more? And we've gone through this process, and it brings us to today. And my challenge to ICLEI and to the partners that are also here, because I know there are many who are also thinking along this line, as we finish climbing this curve, can we begin to be ecological engineers? Move from extracting as being the first premise of what we built through these economies of the city to actually production being the first and recycling and reuse being the first principle that allows us to create a culture of urbanism that is self-organizing and self-sustaining. So that's the scenario. It's not one that's based on any model, but it's a scenario based on the pure dreaming will of an organization that has lived on pure, audacious dreams. And I'm wondering if ICLEI could dream a little further. Could we have a program for an urban biome that bring those partners together that leverages that goodwill to allow us to really imagine the possibility of a biome that is a global system of cities? And I've not ever been very good at names. There's the name ICLEI and there's the name CCP, but it did come to my mind that there was a name here that we could use that is popular and that would resonate with the population. So I closed with the question, can we achieve really great things out of bad names? And I think you've already demonstrated that we can. Thank you very much.